Paperguide is an AI research workspace designed to support the full research workflow in one place. Instead of using one tool to search, another tool to read papers, another to organize references, and another to write, Paperguide connects all of these steps together. In this demo, I'll show how I can start from a research question, find relevant papers, analyze and compare them, organize them in a reference manager, extract structured evidence, generate a literature review and a deep research report, and then use AI Writer to create a draft grounded in citations. For this walkthrough, I'll use a concrete example question. Is intermittent fasting more effective than daily calorie restriction for fat loss and metabolic health? I'll start with AI search, which is the fastest way to begin a research task in Paperguide. When I enter a research question, Paperguide does more than run a simple keyword search. For each question, it searches multiple queries in the background, re-ranks the relevant papers, and collects the top papers based on both relevance and quality. Then, based on the top 20 papers, it generates a research-backed answer with citations. So instead of just getting a list of search results, I also get a synthesized answer grounded in the literature. I can open the output to view the top 20 papers that were used, and this gives me transparency into which sources are shaping the answer. From here, I can ask follow-up questions to go deeper into specific aspects of the topic, like fat loss outcomes, metabolic markers, or evidence limitations. If I find useful papers in the search results, I can directly add them to my reference manager for further analysis. While saving them, I can also choose the exact folder path where I want them stored. And if I want to work outside Paperguide or share the search results elsewhere, I can export the papers from Search in BibTeX or CSV format. Once I've found a strong set of papers, the next step is to save and organize them so I can reuse them across the rest of my workflow. This is the Paperguide Reference Manager, which is where I can store, organize, annotate, share, and collaborate on research papers. There are multiple ways to add papers here. I can insert a paper using a URL or DLI, search and add papers from public research sources, upload PDFs directly, or import BibTeX and RIS files. If I already use Zotero, I can also import my Zotero library into Paperguide by connecting my account and selecting the collections I want to bring in. To keep my research organized, I can use folders and subfolders, and I can also create tags and assign them to papers. Moving papers around is also very simple. I can just drag and drop papers between folders to quickly reorganize my library. For each paper in the reference manager, I can generate an AI summary, add notes, and annotate the paper as I read. Let me show you the annotation workflow. I can highlight important lines or key findings directly in the paper and then attach notes to those exact sections. This is useful when I want to capture why a result matters, note a limitation, mark an interesting method, or save something I want to revisit later. So instead of keeping my reading notes separately, I can keep highlights, comments, and context directly connected to the paper inside my research library. Paperguide also makes collaboration straightforward. I can share a folder with colleagues, collaborators, or friends by entering their email and setting the appropriate access. Once shared, everyone can work on the same set of papers together. Collaborators can review papers, add notes, annotate important sections, and continue building the shared library as a team. And when I need to take this library elsewhere, I can export references from the reference manager in RIS or BibTeX format. This is the Research Agent, Paperguide's flexible agent for general research tasks. I can use it for a wide range of work, including finding papers, asking research questions, comparing studies, identifying gaps, summarizing findings, and generating useful outputs from selected papers. Here, I'm asking it to compare a few papers from my reference manager, focusing on study design, fat loss outcomes, metabolic outcomes, and limitations. The research agent doesn't just answer in chat. It can also generate output files, including documents and tables, depending on the task. In this case, I asked for a comparison table, so it generated an extracted data table with the required fields. If I want, I can save this output file, and it will be stored in my Notebooks menu. Now I'll also ask it to identify gaps and inconsistencies in the evidence. This is especially useful when I want to move from reading individual studies to understanding what the broader literature still does not answer clearly. Here, it responds with clear research gaps along with citations, so I can verify the evidence behind each point. The agent can also generate articles, documents, and full drafts based on the selected papers and instructions. If I want to review everything the agent has produced, I can click the Outputs button in the top header and see all the generated outputs from this chat in one place. So overall, the research agent can act as an everyday research assistant, helping with paper search, comparison, gap finding, synthesis, and a wide range of research tasks in one place. Next, I'll move into Chat with PDF, which is more focused on deeply interacting with one or more papers. To start a chat, I can either upload PDFs directly or select papers from my reference manager. This gives me a dedicated PDF-focused experience and better answers for questions directly about the papers I'm reading. I can ask questions on a single paper when I want to understand one study deeply, or I can ask questions across multiple papers when I want comparative answers. Now, if I want to discuss a topic across multiple papers, I can simply add a few more papers to the chat. Once I do that, I can compare papers, ask broader questions, and use the chat to clarify doubts across multiple studies. In this case, I'll ask it to identify which of the selected papers provides the strongest evidence. For every answer, Paperguide provides citations, so I can see exactly which paper supports each statement. If I click on a citation, I can view the paper details. And if I click the page number or view source text, I can inspect the exact source text from the cited paper behind that answer. This is very useful because it makes the answers verifiable. I'm not just getting a summary. I can go back to the source text and confirm the evidence. Once I've analyzed the papers in chat, the next step is to structure the evidence into a table. That's where Extract Data helps, by turning papers into structured evidence tables. To start extraction, I select the papers from my reference manager that I want to analyze. Once the table is created, I open Manage Columns to add and manage the extraction fields. For each column, I enter a title and specific instructions describing what should be extracted and how it should be represented. The better the instruction, the better the extraction quality. For example, if I want to extract the study design from these papers, I can define exactly what types of designs I want Paperguide to identify and what it should do if the design is not clearly specified. If I want something faster, I can also use the default extraction columns. And if I want to use a custom extraction column in other tables, I can save it. Once saved, I can reuse it across other extraction tables as well. Once extraction runs, if I want to verify extracted text, I can click the text in the cell to view the actual supporting statements from the paper. This makes extraction transparent and reviewable, which is especially useful for literature reviews, synthesis, and evidence comparison. I can also add more papers to this table later and export the extracted table and analysis in CSV or Excel format. All the default columns and saved custom columns are managed from the Manage Columns section here. And all extracted data tables are saved in the Notebooks menu, so I can come back later, edit the columns, add more papers, and continue working. At this point, I've already collected and finalized papers in a folder in my reference manager. Now I'll move to the literature review agent. To generate a literature review, I simply enter my research question and add instructions for how I want the review to be written. The literature review agent has two modes. Standard mode screens up to 100 papers and writes the review using the top 20 papers. Extended mode screens up to 200 papers and writes the review using the top 50 papers. What Paperguide does here is important. It searches across the 200 million plus public research papers using multiple semantic searches, screens the most relevant papers, extracts data from the included papers, synthesizes the evidence, and then writes a structured literature review. So this is not just text generation. It is following a more complete literature review workflow. And Paperguide gives me more than just the final review document. I also get the searched papers, the screening table, and the extracted data table as outputs for further analysis. Another useful part is that I can ask follow-up questions about the generated review, so the review itself becomes interactive. And this is not limited to public research papers. I can also use papers I've already collected in my reference manager, add my question, instructions, and filters, and generate a literature review for my own research workflow, or even for refining an initial draft. The literature review agent is ideal for a structured review workflow. Next, I'll show Deep Research Report, which gives me more control over the overall process. Here, I'll start by entering and finalizing my research question. Then I can choose the review process, automated or controlled flow. The automated flow gives me the final report directly, while the controlled flow gives me manual control over each step in the process. I'll use the manual flow here. Instead of relying only on a standard review workflow, I can explicitly define what questions should be searched, what criteria should be used for screening, and what fields should be extracted from the papers. For example, at the screening stage, I can add an additional criterion. If I want to include only human studies, I can define that as a screening field, and the workflow will proceed accordingly. That makes this especially useful for deeper synthesis, tailored review workflows, and more complex research tasks where I want to shape the process myself. Paperguide then uses these instructions to generate a deep research report grounded in the included evidence. So, while the literature review agent is the more structured, review-oriented workflow, Deep Research Report gives me more manual control over search, screening, extraction, and synthesis. Let's see how to use Paperguide's AI Writer. To get started, you can import an existing Word document or create a new one here. Let's go with a new one for this demo. There are a few ways in our writer to start your document. You can generate the complete document, generate an outline for your topic, or start from scratch by just describe what you're writing so AI has better context while you use the AI features. If you don't want any of that and just want to jump into a blank document without setting up first, simply skip this step and start writing in the blank document. Now, let's start with Generate Document. Here I'll describe my research topic and instructions. I'm going to enter my intermittent fasting research topic, add a few instructions about how I want my document structured, and also specify which papers I want it to use as references. Here I'll ask it to use papers from the last 5 years. This prompt helps AI with better context on what you're writing, so it can assist you better right from the start. AI uses these instructions to write and to find relevant papers it can cite while generating content. Even if you aren't using Generate Document and are going with Start from scratch, give this prompt for better AI context and recommendations. If you have a rough draft or notes you've prepared, you can attach them along with your prompt so AI can use them as context. Now, let's configure document settings. Coming to citation sources, for the given topic and instructions, AI will search for related papers from our 200 million research paper database and your reference manager. You can customize which sources it should use while generating content and adding claims and citations. I wanted to find papers from both my reference manager and the research database. I can select which folders it should look at. I already have saved references, so let's use just those. There's also an option to make sure AI cites the selected papers from my reference manager. If I enable this checkbox, it has to refer to and cite these papers. It'll still find other relevant ones too, but it won't leave these out. Use this option when you already have related references saved. I can set citation settings, document language, and word count here. Using the number of citations option, I can set how many references the agent can use, up to that limit, while writing the document. Then I can enter the word count for how long the generated document should be. It won't be exactly that number, but the generated document will come close to the word count I give. The number of citations and word count options are only available for Generate Document because these are used as limits while AI generates the complete document. All done. Once that's set, Paperguide AI starts its research process to generate the document. It first finds related papers from your selected citation sources. Then it creates inclusion and exclusion criteria based on your question and instructions, and screens each paper against them. From the included papers, it extracts the data, spots patterns and gaps, synthesizes the findings, then organizes the themes and structure, and drafts your document. This process can take 5 to 10 minutes. We'll send you an email when the document is ready, so you can come back and check it. Now it's generated the complete document with citations for the research topic. It's created a well-structured document following my outline instructions, added images for data representation, and cited papers for the claims. I can refine this content or continue writing here. The writer has multiple formatting options and components to write with. There are heading styles, lists, equation blocks, tables, images, and code blocks. Now, let's see how to refine or edit content with AI Edit. You can select an entire block by clicking the drag icon on the left side, or select the text with your cursor. A few options open up to edit the text, and let's click on AI Edit. AI Edit opens a prompt bar along with a few preset options. I can type a prompt to rewrite the text, or use the options below like simplify or improve writing. Now, let's see how to add equations and formulas in the writer. Go to a new line and click the Math block option at the top. It adds an equation block. To add an equation, click on the card and type it in CADX format, or just describe it in a prompt and let AI generate the formula. If you want to add a formula or equation inside a line instead of as a separate block, place your cursor and click the Inline Equation option at the top. It adds an inline block in the same way, and you can type it in CADX or describe it for AI to generate. Next, let's explore AI Chat in the Writer. AI Chat assists with both writing and research. You can use it to find papers, understand topics, compare them, improve your writing, generate new content, continue your document, and more. Let's say I want to add a supporting reference here. I can select this text and ask AI Chat to find papers that support this argument. Now I can check and verify the references it gives me. I can also directly add the generated content to the document. Just place the cursor where you want to add the text and click the Add to Document button below the chat response. It adds the citations and references too. I can also use AI chat to generate content. Let's say in the comparison section, I want to add something about differentiation by population in fasting. I'll ask it to draft content for this section and also mention where I want it placed, so it understands the argument flow and structure. It gives me content using the references, and now I can use it in my document. So that's AI chat. It handles pretty much any writing or research help you need while you work on your document, with citations always pulled from your selected sources. Let's look at the document settings. Here you can see the prompt you described about your topic and instructions. If you are writing in a blank document, you can open settings and describe the topic and instructions here. You can also adjust the citation settings below. If you go to the Sources tab under Settings, you can see the paper's AI found during its search. You can also see the paper's AI included to use as references while generating content. AI understands your document content, prompt, and citations and automatically updates the references it has stored. Our writer also has another AI feature called Smart Continue. If you pause while writing, it'll auto-complete the sentence, and if you stop, it'll continue with a new line at your cursor position. You just need to press the Tab key to accept the Smart Continue text. It follows your writing flow and document structure and writes content that's relevant and fluent. It also includes citations as it writes. Even if you're in the middle of a sentence, it'll follow the argument perfectly and complete it. We also have a comments feature. You can select text and add comments or notes, so you can refer back to them later. You can manually cite references by typing out in the document or by clicking the Cite button at the top. It opens a dialog box with a search bar. Select the tab where you want to search for the paper, either the research database or your reference manager, and search by entering the paper title. The relevant results show below, and you click the Cite button next to the paper you want to cite. On top of that, we have a grammar checker and a plagiarism checker. There's also a version history to view previous versions of your document, and you can restore any of them. And finally, if you want to export, you can export to Docs, LaTeX, or PDF formats.